Good morning, friends and fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for November 15th, 2024. Well, my goodness, everyone, I hope you had a great afternoon. Ready for another busy day with an economic calendar that's got several things that we're going to have to be paying attention to, and a few other items that I want to point out here in just a little bit. First off, let's take a look at what happened overnight last night. Asian markets were mixed last night. We had economic numbers out of China that were kind of interesting. They saw their retail sales rose in October, which was nice, and their unemployment fell to just 5%, down from 5.1%. Unfortunately, their industrial production and urban unemployment was not good. If you take a look at Japan finally broke the back of a little bit of a recessionary situation over there with their GDP coming in at 3%. That was a 0.2% increase, so kind of snapping a 2 consecutive quarter decline. But that being said, on the Asian markets last night, we had Shanghai lower by 1.45%. Hong Kong was lower just ever so slightly by 0.5%. India was down. The Nikkei was up 0.28%. Australia was also up slightly here on 0.74% on the day. If we take a look at European markets here this morning, we have European markets mixed and mostly lower. The DAX is down slightly by 0.04% or $7.50. FTSE is up 0.04% or $3.63, and the CAC being down 0.09% or 6.62. So essentially flat here on the day in Europe. And then if we look at U.S. futures, well, U.S. futures are looking a little bit on the bearish side after hearing Jerome Powell's comments yesterday that he's in no rush in lowering rates. And if we think about it, that does kind of make sense. The stock markets are at new record highs. We have already taken a 75 basis point cut. We saw jobless claims drop by 4,000 yesterday. So with the economy running as hot as it is right now, I would have to say maybe he's right on that. And then essentially we saw sticky numbers coming in from CPI and PPI. So maybe a pause in December. Maybe building into the market. As a result, here we've got futures lower. NASDAQ futures down 0.78% or $164 at the moment. NASDAQ futures down 0.55% and down $33. And Dow futures down 0.40% or $174 here at the moment as I'm recording this video. Now, we are also seeing bond yields going up this morning as a result of Powell's comments, but not very strongly. Our 2-year has popped up here quite a bit at 4.32%. Our 10-year is at 4.43, and our 30-year is right back up there to 4.59%. So a little bit of pressure in those bond yields, and that's just been one of those things that's been going on. The bonds seem to be disagreeing with the overall market bullishness, so kind of be careful in here. Now, if we take a look at oil this morning, oil is a little bit lower here. We were pushing up yesterday a bit on oil, but this morning we've got oil futures are down 52 cents or at 68.18 a barrel. Brent is down 59 cents at 71.97 a barrel. Although we continue to see things in the oil producer side of things holding very, very bullishly here if we look at XLE. Now, if we look at natural gas, UNG is a little bit lower this morning after suffering a pretty substantial pullback. We had this big pop up. It was getting a little bit hopeful that maybe natural gas would start coming around, but not so much here, not just yet in that market. If we take a look at gold and precious metals here this morning, well, we got GLD just a little bit higher here today, only $2.80 an ounce at the moment. Silver is up slightly, but we have suffered some pretty substantial declines here on these commodity prices because of the strength of the dollar. Copper is up this morning, platinum and palladium is also up. Palladium getting a pretty good pop here, up $36, $37 an ounce. So keep an eye on that. But one of the things that we have been struggling with is this in US dollar. This morning we're seeing the dollar pull back here just a little bit from yesterday's highs. We'll have to keep a close eye on that. That's helping here today with that dollar coming down after pushing up here into these resistance areas of the chart. And you can see I'm going to push that up just a little bit higher right up in here. We popped through and now we're pulling that back here. So watch carefully as this rests back to see if it can find some support in the chart. That might be really helpful if that can start coming back down. Let's take a look at the cryptos this morning. Bitcoin, BITO, showing all kinds of bullishness here this morning. Bitcoin up $1,425 an ounce. This has been quite volatile here recently in these moves. Watch that closely. At the same time, Ether is down $12 at the moment per coin, or 0.40%. And as we look across some of the cryptos, there is a mix in those cryptos here. So keep an eye on that. So what does that mean for today? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Friday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Today's video is going to be just a little bit different because I've got a couple things I would like to cover here this morning. I'm not going to take a long time with it before we start looking at the charts, but something we really have to consider. The U.S. debt clock. U.S. debt clock, we have flipped over to $36 trillion in debt. And if you remember, it was September 29th when we went over $35 trillion in debt. So just short of 4 months, we've added another trillion. And as this continues to grow, we're speeding up. This isn't slowing down, it's speeding up, which means we could, before too long, start putting on about $1 trillion in debt every single quarter. So keep an eye on that. One of the things that we're going to have to start really dealing with is this debt situation here in the market. And although the market has largely tried to ignore that situation, well, I think we're doing it. We're racing toward a cliff here pretty quickly in debt. We're going to have to get some of this figured out. Now, as I talk about that, just one day ago, we saw that the credit card debt here in the United States went to a new record high. So 1.17 trillion as consumers continue to pile on that debt and creating some issues, I think, for themselves and probably for our economy as well, as that consumer continues to get strained. And then this new report here that housing debt has hit a new record high, squeezing those low-income Americans. And if we move right down here, the new record of 17.9 trillion in household debt on the consumer side of things is going to make things very, very challenging for this new administration, for things that are going to have to be done to start turning this around and correcting this problem. So keep a close eye on that. I wish that wasn't an issue, but one of the reasons I think we continue to see our bonds showing so much strength here is the market is ignoring all of this debt, and the bond market is saying there's a problem here with it. So kind of keep those things in mind. Now, as we look at the markets, diamonds here, as you can see, very, very bullish here in the market. We're continuing to hold that bullish pattern, but as I suggested, a little rest or pullback was likely due in the market after zooming so much. And yesterday we saw a little bit of pressure here after the Powell comments, pushing back down below that upside trend, and we're pushing a little bit lower here today. So if those bears continue to find inspiration today in the economic data, earnings data, then maybe a push down here, we can test this low of that candle, and if that fails, maybe come right back down here to this area of price support. Now, I'm going to say that even though that might be a little bit painful for anyone who's been kind of rushing in and buying and buying and buying on every one of these pop-ups, the thing that we have to consider, this is a pretty normal situation for the diamonds, and actually a relatively healthy situation. If this holds this support, then there we go. We've got opportunity for the upside here, and that's a more controlled move to the upside. So keep an eye on that. Where real concern might come into the market is if we were to break down below that area. Then we've got this giant gap that could be filled, and that would be a little bit painful. Now, if the bulls find inspiration here today, well, that push back up, we're going to have to push through this little bit of price resistance right in there, as you can see, as we tied those candles together. And if we can push beyond that, we got to break that candle from yesterday, the high of that, and then we can start pushing up here and see if we can reattack these all-time highs. Looking at the SPY, well, very much the same. We have pulled back here yesterday, probably raising a little bit of concern in the market. We've got this gap that looks like it's going to be filled, this little gap right here, filled this morning on the push down. But here again in the SPY, I don't see any major issue or problem. This is still a bullish chart holding above good areas of price support in here. Maybe just this little fade, little rest coming back into here, and we could see that move back to the upside as long as that support holds. Now, that being said, if the bears can find more inspiration here today to push down, well, we might look at the low of that candle right there, the body of the candle anyway, and then possibly push on down to retest this area of price support. That would be a major surprise, and again, it really doesn't break this chart. Technically, still a bullish chart. Now, if we see those bulls fight back today, and kind of common that we see those bulls fighting on Friday for a nice close, then that push back up here, we can find this price resistance in the chart and then see if we can push right on through back up into these areas and maybe start attacking those all-time highs. Now, if we take a look at our QQQ pushing down to our trend here in the chart, and we're coming into this support level of this high breakout. And this morning it looks like we're gapping right down into that area here to see if we can maybe test this area of price support in the chart. Of course, that's giving up this trend just a little bit, but I don't see this as a bearish chart at all. With all of this price support that we have in here, this is still very bullish. I think all this is showing us we kind of got carried away on our celebration off after the election, and just went a little bit too far, too fast. So a little rest in here to pull back into that level. But if that were to fail, push down into here still looks like a possibility. And really, once again, that does not hurt this chart technically at the moment. So watch that carefully. If we could hold some support in there and then bounce, we're going to be in good shape. If the bulls do find that inspiration, I think what we need to do is we're going to have to push up through some of these areas of the chart. And this is building as a little bit of a strong area of resistance at the moment. So we're going to need something special to push up through there and reattack the all-time highs. So watch that carefully. And our IWM, obviously feeling a little bit of pressure here yesterday, breaking down below that support. Now we are in this possible gap. So if the bears can continue to find inspiration here today, then a push down to test this high right in here looks like a possibility could occur. And beyond that point, well, maybe we completely fill the gap on this big pop up, catching some support down in here. But once again, we're still holding an upside trend here in IWM, so I don't see anything terribly bearish here. If the bulls, however, find inspiration, first thing we need to do is get back above that resistance and then see if we can attack this resistance area here in the chart. We're tying a lot of these candles together, and price resistance get above that black candle of yesterday, and then we can start working our way up to see if we can deal with these other levels here in the chart. If we take a look at our VIX, interestingly enough, our VIX pushed down yesterday, but by the end of the day was reversing back up. So we may have just a little bit of complacency built into the market here right now. We'll want to be watching that carefully with that potential complacency, just simply because we got a little carried away in our after post-election party, maybe just a little hangover right now. So watch that here. If those bears were to have anything to say today, maybe pushing back up to test this area of resistance and then right up into here. And if we can break through there, well, maybe we can come up into this area of price resistance. If we take a look on the bullish side, if the bulls can find inspiration today, then pushing back down to test this area of price support and then even breaking on through and see if we can come on back down here to test these lows here in the market down around 12.5 handles in the VIX. If we take a look at our T20s, our T2122, as you can see here in the chart, T2122 continuing that pullback. And if we take a look at the gap here this morning, the bearishness in the market, it's pretty possible that we could be down here in our bullish reversal zone here today. So this gap down this morning could actually bring in the bulls for that little bit of a bounce, that push back up if we can push down into here at the open. So watch that carefully for that possibility. Now, we have extended this market so far. Don't be surprised if it's going to take a little bit more point-wise move down into here to actually reach that area, but yeah, keep a close eye on that. If the bulls can find inspiration today, well, what we do know is we've opened a pretty big opportunity for those bulls to push back in the T2122 indicator. So keep an eye on that as we progress through the day. Our T2108, the percentage of stocks above the 40-day moving average, continued to decline yesterday, but once again, we came into some support, so we could still hold on to that support. Unfortunately, we slipped just below 50%, just a little bit more than half of the stocks are below their 40-day moving average. We'll want to keep a close eye on that. If the bears were to have something to say today and push on lower, we've got some support areas down in here and down in here, but obviously that could be pretty painful for the overall market. If the bulls find inspiration, however, and we bounce off of this area price support here in the chart, push back up, well, we've got that downtrend to be watching and these price resistance levels here in the chart to be keeping an eye on. Our T2107, very much the same thing. In here we push down. We're still in good shape here on T2107 because our 50% of the stocks above the 200 is all the way down here. So tested this resistance in the chart, kind of rejecting it at the moment. We're giving up just barely gave up a little bit of price support in here yesterday on that. But I don't see anything terrible here. So if those bears do find inspiration here today, maybe pushing on down to test some of these areas, but that's still above the 50% area here in the chart. And if the bulls can push back, maybe a bounce back up, and we can see if we're up here testing these areas of resistance in the chart as well. And then let's take a look on our T2101. T2101 continued to show that breadth declining yesterday. So our breadth wasn't all that strong, but if you notice, we got a little tiny bend right here starting to show up in that chart, which may mean we might get that breadth increase here on the day and start pushing back up. Now, we don't want to see that breadth increase on a bearish wave. We don't want to see those bears gaining confidence in this and see breadth on the bearish side picking up. So we're going to want to see some kind of bullish bounce here today if that's going to pick up off of there. So watch that closely. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. And our economic calendar, well, it's kind of a busy one here this morning. We've got retail sales numbers coming out here at 8 o'clock. Right now, they're looking at those by consensus to go a little bit lower from a 0.4 to a 0.3 on the retail sales ex vehicles. They're suggesting 0.5 to a 0.3, and ex vehicles and gas at 0.4 from a 0.7. So this might be a little bit of concern for the market if it comes in weak like this, or even weaker, simply that the consumers are stressed. And I think those numbers that I showed you of the record debt levels, I think consumers are really in a stressful situation. Now, if we take a look at Empire State Manufacturing, they're looking at that to come in at 0.0, but that would be a huge improvement from the negative 11.9. So keep an eye on that. That would be bullish for the market today, to start to see our manufacturing coming back around. If we take a look at import-export prices, well, we could have a little bit of problem with that. With the strength of the dollar, really causes some issues in import-export. Looking import month over month from a negative 0.4 to a negative 0.1, so they're looking for an improvement there. Export a negative 0.7 to a negative 0.1. They're also looking for an improvement there. Don't be surprised if this has a little bit of inconsistency with what actually comes out, just simply because of the strength of the dollar. And then if we take a look, we've got Collins speaking. We're going to get industrial production numbers. Industrial production month over month, the prior was a negative 0.3, so anything above that would be an improvement. Manufacturing output was a negative 0.4. Again, anything above that would be an improvement. We've got business inventories that will be out today. We've got Collins speaking again. We've got a Baker Hughes rig count, Williams, and then Collins for a third time today will be speaking. I don't know what made her so popular for today, but she is the popular one. So keep an eye on this today. On the earnings calendar, we have a very light day. Our earnings calendar, we just don't have much going on here today. BABA reporting today. So keep an eye. Whoops, that's not BABA. There we go. BABA reporting well here this morning, bouncing up this morning, trying to push on through. Remember, we are in a downtrend and we've got resistance above here in the chart, but that's trying to come up on its earnings report here today. And SPB is what I want. SPB also reporting today. A little pop and drop so far this morning. Keep an eye on that. Remember, you can have any kind of reaction at the earnings report, and then it's a conference call that can really turn things around, whether it's going to be bullish or bearish. So watch those closely. And that's it for the notable earnings for today. There are no notable earnings for the afternoon after the bell. We're really starting to slip out from underneath that major impact of those earnings and the inspiration of those earnings. So with that being said, how about we take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. And if you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, that would be click that thumbs up button, leave a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. And thank you so much to everyone who does take the time to do that. I do truly appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Now, let's take a look at a few of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, these aren't recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence. Be very, very careful in this market. And remember carefully that you need to follow your rules, your guidelines, and never ever blindly follow anyone else's trade ideas. Well, first off here, let's take a look at some of these oil sector stocks that continue to set up in nice consolidating patterns. ExxonMobil looking very good. I've placed an alert here on FANG and also on ExxonMobil as they continue to consolidate in these bullish patterns, looking for that opportunity to move on up. But they are not the only ones showing incredible bullishness. You can see Chevron actually broke that resistance here this week in that nice little resting consolidation, pushing on through to the upside, pushing up here to this next area of resistance in the chart. And there are quite a few very, very bullish charts in this sector starting to come around. Now, stocks like APA just trying to come up here off a bottom. This is one that's still got a lot of work to do, so I'd kind of keep this one in the back pocket. I don't think I would pay much attention to that. When you take a look at things like Devon, still trying to deal with that basing pattern in here off of these lows. Worth keeping an eye on, maybe, but just not ready for prime time yet. But then you start looking at things like EQT, and you know, I've really got to start paying attention to some of these oil sector stocks. So watch that carefully here. A lot of these are showing significant strength. Let's take a look at Apple in here. I placed a price alert on Apple for a possible short, and although it really got a nice bullish push yesterday, you can see that possibility in here as we contact this downtrend here in the chart, that if this were to roll over, this would fail its 50-day moving average and 200-day moving average. So we've got a big area of technical resistance here on the chart, as well as some price resistance coming into play here on Apple. So I would watch that closely. I am concerned that this could soon begin to roll over to the downside. Watch that carefully. Let's take a look at some other areas here. You guys know I've been mentioning Lulu. Lulu continues to look very, very good here. We like the way that consolidated, pushed on up. This is my classic pattern here that I teach all the time. Something near support, something near trend, set a price alert, wait for the trade, pop. Goes a weasel, and up she goes. Money gets pushed into your account. That's exactly the kind of pattern we want to be looking for. Beautiful chart. I think this might need a little bit of consolidation or rest here, but watch that carefully. We've got a couple of small days of price action in here that could easily find that trend again and find this support and push on higher there in Lulu. Let's take a look at Uber here. Now, Uber, there was a lot of hope that this was going to come back up and get something going here. Uber is one of those charts that I would really be watching carefully for the possibility of a potential failure here. If we look right here in Uber, underneath our 50, sliding underneath our 200-day here at the moment, even any rally back in here that comes back up and tests this downtrend, I would be watching for that potential to the downside. I'm going to not have that kind of a look at Lyft. Lyft is being really, really strong here after its gap up. Nice little rest that's coming in here in between this resistance and support. Now this may have to rest a little bit longer to come out to trend for that next opportunity to push on through, but I would keep a close eye on that chart. As you guys know, I've kind of been picking on AMD here lately as a short. That short has now officially completed the lower low here in this chart. So lower high, lower low. Now I'd be watching for any kind of opportunity for AMD to bounce back up or consolidate over to the trend to look for the next potential short there in AMD. Watch that pretty closely. Certainly can't say that about NVIDIA. NVIDIA holding in a very, very bullish pop out of the box pattern. You can see holding right in here on support, and we're just sliding our way out here toward trend. So the longer this rests or consolidates out here in this move, once those bulls come in, I would expect a pretty good upside pop if it can push through on that trade. As you guys know, I was kind of I mentioned CCJ here the other day. I was trying to come back up, but boy, popped that resistance. And here's one of those things that we really have to be paying attention to when the market is showing weakness like this. Anything that slips down and breaks its trend and we pop back up into a resistance area, you've got to be watching for that possibility of that potential failure here. So keep an eye on that chart. If you take a look at rig in the oil sector, oil exploration, to be exact oil driller, as you can see, little higher low, nice little pullback. We're breaking out from under this downtrend, so a little bit of rest or consolidation in here might set up an interesting opportunity here in rig. And I would take a look at XOP as well. XOP breaking this downtrend here in the chart, just kind of resting back here just a little bit. I'd look for that next opportunity for XOP to maybe push on through to the upside. So there's a few stocks for you to look at today. A little bit of mix, some bullish, some bearishness in here. I'm not really sure which way this market is going to end up, but what we have to do is be keeping an eye and be respectful of the overall trends, which right now, Diamond SPY, QQQ, and IWM are still holding upside trend. So don't fret about this pullback. We just got a little bit too excited at the moment. So I want to wish you all a fantastic day, great results in your trading, and I will see you, and also a wonderful weekend. I'll see you right back here bright and early Monday morning. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.